Miami went to Milwaukee and pulled off the impossible, eliminating the number one seed Bucks. Another epic comeback in the fourth, going overtime. Big shots from Jimmy Butler, Gabe Vincent, and the Bucks falling apart. This one had it all. A historic, incredible game to cap off one of the craziest playoff series of all time. The Heat are moving on to take on the Knicks, and you're listening to Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. However you might be tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. And thanks so much to everybody who's tuning in live. We are recording this at 1 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast after the Heat beat the Bucks to advance to the second round. We're still sort of coming down from the high of this thing. Quick recap: Heat down 16 points to start the fourth quarter. Giannis parading to the free throw line most of the game. Chris Middleton just going off, kind of having that game that everybody sort of expected them to have eventually in this series. But then Jimmy Butler and the Heat did what Jimmy Butler and the Heat have done all series. Jimmy scores 12 straight points. The Heat tie the game with less than a minute to go. And then Giannis and Bambo scored. Game still tied. Chris Middleton, he hits 2 free throws. The Bucks go back up 2 with 27.8 seconds to go. Holiday gets fouled. He makes a pair of free throws. Bucks up by 4 with 14 seconds left. Then Gabe Vincent runs down the court and drills this cold-blooded pull-up three-pointer with 8 seconds on the clock to keep the Heat in the game, to keep the free throw thing still in play. Holiday gets fouled. He makes one of the 2 free throws again. And that sets up, David, one of the craziest end-of-game inbound plays that I've ever seen. Gabe Vincent, with Giannis towering in front of him, he actually backs up away from the border of the out of bounds area and gets as far to the seats as or as close to the seats as he possibly can, just to create as much room and separation between him and this giant in front of him, and somehow delivers this basically near cross court pass to Jimmy Butler, who, while falling away and getting pulled down by Pat Connaughton, a lot of contact there. Yep. Somehow tips it in while falling away from the basket. I have no idea how he got that much touch on it. I have no idea how it went in. The only person who was sure it was going to go in was Jimmy Butler, apparently. That forces overtime, where the Heat outscore the Bucks 10-8. The Heat beat the Bucks in 5 games. The number 1 seed Bucks were the championship favorites coming into these playoffs. I know that there was no Giannis for most of the 3 games. I get it, but the Bucks are still really good. They won a lot of games without Giannis in the regular season. Jimmy Butler was the best player on the court the entire series, with or without Giannis on the court or involved. And now the Heat are going to play the Knicks in the second round. That begins Sunday. We are going to get where this Jimmy Butler playoff series ranks among the greatest in Heat history. We have a lot to get to there. We might even talk a little bit about that Knicks series. But David, what did you think was going to happen tonight?
I thought it was going to be a likely loss. I really did. Milwaukee has shown tenacity. Giannis had a good game in game 4, despite the fact that Jimmy was nuclear and still able to carry him to a big win. And I thought, with another day of rest, that he'd come back and play effectively this series, that they'd have the home court advantage, as you would expect in the playoffs. A loud crowd, getting foul calls in their favor. There was a foul call disparity, a free throw disparity in Milwaukee's favor, but I think that's just also by virtue of the style of which they were playing. Giannis attacking the basket regularly, getting a lot of calls that way. And yet Miami somehow found a way to respond. But to answer your question, I thought, Milwaukee would build up that momentum. And I wasn't sure if Jimmy was going to be able to duplicate the success that he had the other night, because so much of it was understanding key moments in the game, having these kind of momentum shifting plays, that steal and dunk, the tipped pass late in the fourth quarter, all those things that worked out perfectly for Jimmy to have that 21-point fourth quarter in game 4. I wasn't sure that they were going to be able to reproduce that tonight, especially when they were down 16. It felt like a much larger deficit at that point in time. And yet They did exactly what they were supposed to do, and still, to their credit, had to get contributions from everybody else. So I wasn't sure that they were going to find a way to win. Again, I thought it was very unlikely. I thought they would come back in Game 6 and then kind of regroup. They didn't need to. They didn't need to. It's an incredible game, an incredible accomplishment. It's historic. The sixth team in NBA playoff history, the sixth 8-seeded team, to come back against the number 1 seed and to do it on the road in Milwaukee against 3 all-NBA level defenders, a deep bench, numerous proven playoff additions, Jay Crowder, Goran Dragic, etc., Joe Ingles, all these different various players that they've added to their roster, and yet none of them had an answer for Jimmy Butler. Unbelievable. What a fantastic game. One of the best I've ever seen.
42 points on 33 shots for Jimmy, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean, the most important plays of the game, obviously. I really do want to talk about Gabe Vincent, but I feel like we would be doing Jimmy Butler a disservice by talking about Gabe right now. But that you mentioned going into Milwaukee and doing it tonight. I think most people expect, look, the Milwaukee Bucks are so good. They are a good team. That team won, 18 straight games during the regular season. Giannis was a legit MVP candidate. Drew Holiday is going to probably make an all-NBA team. Chris Middleton, I know it's been up and down for him, but
he was fantastic tonight.
He was great tonight. He probably played the best he has all season in this series. I know it was even an up and down series, but like I said, it's been a frustrating year for him. The depth was real, right? Bobby Portis was a 6th Man of the Year finalist. They were supposed to be the deeper team. Going into the series, they are a really good team. And I know
Shout out to Udonis Haslem for psyching Bobby Portis out or doing whatever was necessary, talking at Bobby, jawing at him, and picking up a technical in the process. That is the OG right there.
I know a lot of Heat fans are going to be like, the Bucks suck and all this kind of stuff and whatever, but that kind of diminishes what it is that the Heat accomplished here. The Bucks are really good, and the Heat beat a really good team. You know what I mean? And so you mentioned how this hasn't happened in a long time. The last time a number 8 beat a number 7 was 2011. The number 8 seeded Grizzlies beat the number 1 seed Spurs. Before that, it hadn't happened since 2011. The number 8 Warriors beating the number 1 Mavericks. Right. So it's been 12 years since we've seen something like this. An 8 beat a 1. It was historic, and not just historic in the accomplishment that the Miami Heat had as a team overall, but in what Jimmy Butler did. Let's get to it now. David, is this the greatest playoff series a Heat player has ever had? All right. So before you answer, I've got some stats. All right. So this is Jimmy Butler's final stat line for this one. 37.6 points per game on 59.7% shooting, 6 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 1.8 steals. All right. So basically 37 points a game on 60% shooting is what he did in 5 games. All right. So I looked up some of the best ones ever in Heat history. Dwayne Wade, 2006 finals, one you and I covered extensively over the summer. 34.7 points on 46.8% shooting, 7.8 rebounds, 3.8 assists, basically 3 steals and a block. Dwayne Wade's probably second greatest series ever, Eastern Conference Finals or semifinals against Boston in the 2011 playoffs. 30 points a game on 53% shooting, 6.8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. I'm going to round up on some of these because it's just easier to keep track. So those are the 2 Wade ones, all right, against Jimmy.
Yep.
LeBron. 2012 Eastern Conference semis against the Pacers. 30 points a game on 50% shooting, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, almost 3 steals a game. Unbelievable. Just crazy LeBron game. 2012 Eastern Conference Finals but against Boston. That whole playoff run was crazy for LeBron. 33.6 points on 53% shooting, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists. Then you got Jimmy Butler in the bubble, 26 points on 55% shooting, 8.3 rebounds, almost 10 assists a game, and 2.2 steals. I mean, absolutely loaded the box score. Then last year's conference finals against the Celtics, 25.6 points on 48% shooting, 7 rebounds, 3.4 assists, and 2 steals. And then this one, again, almost 37 points on 60% shooting, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and almost 2 steals a game. There is a real argument that this was the best playoff series a Heat player has ever played. And that's kind of what it would take and what it did take for a number 8 seed to beat the number 1 seed.
It's hard to argue against Jimmy at this point. And I don't want to feel like a prisoner of the moment. And I've seen the argument that the stakes are somewhat lower here. But again, it kind of feels like it's just diminishing. If you're finding reasons to poke holes in the argument, it's probably because it's just so strong on the
The
surface. And
stakes, I
sometimes,
understand why you said the stakes are lower because it was the first round versus some of the
right.
conference finals and finals, but it was an 8 versus a 1. So the stakes are as high as like in that it would be one thing if
No,
the
no,
Heat was a
yeah,
1
exactly.
seed
That's
beating
what
an 8
exactly.
seed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And not just a number 1 seed, but like a 68 win team. They were the title's favorites. People thought Milwaukee was going to cruise through the Eastern Conference. Bucks in 4 was the average prediction. And I know you and I weren't expecting this. Nobody was. Anybody who's claiming that they saw this coming from Jimmy, I think is lying. Like we could expect maybe that Jimmy was going to have a
Yeah,
big series.
nobody yeah, you could expect maybe like 30 a game, maybe.
But
This is
not the
crazy.
monster performances that he's seen. And who, you know what? We were wrong. We'll eat crow. I don't care. Serve it up, fried, fricassee, however the fuck you want to. Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat are moving on. What a glorious goddamn achievement. This is fun times for Heat Nation. I know I should have cursed, but who cares? I'm caught up in the
It's late
moment.
night.
As
It's late
everybody
night.
should be. It's
Yeah.
1 o'clock. Yeah, it's Locked On Heat
Late
after
night
dark
TV.
right
Yeah,
here.
after dark. All right, let's do credit cookies because I think it deserves it. And there's so many players that I want to get to and so many
So many.
contributions. But before we do that, David, tell the listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. That's right. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit, just like Jimmy Butler. If you got Jimmy Butler, you've got the perfect player. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage. Look for the green check to know which part will fit, or you get your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only, and exclusions do apply.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day, everydayers. We're going to be back Friday morning with a preview of this Knicks series that's going to start Sunday at 1 o'clock. And we're going to have a recap after the game on Sunday as well. Let's get right to credit cookies, David. It's a Heat win, which means it's time to hand them out. What kind of credit cookies we're going to give out right now? 1 o'clock in the morning. I feel like we need some like munchies, like some like drunk food or something.
Yeah, like midnight cookies. I've talked about it before. It seems apt since we're past midnight at this point. I don't know whatever collection of flavors they have there. They've got the chocolate chip, the cinnamon toast crunch cookie, which was freaking awesome. A couple others that were really, really good.
Cinnamon crunch one sounds good. Let's go with cinnamon crunch. I like that.
Yeah, 10 cinnamon crunch cookies.
All right, 10 cinnamon crunch cookies. We're not even going to do 10. We're just going to hand out cookies. I don't care about the amounts. Let's just go down the line.
Nice. You're feeling it today. You're hyped up.
I can't do the math right now. Did you just hear all those stats I ran off? Those are as much numbers as this show needs. Did we agree, by the way, that Jimmy Butler's playoff is it the best one? Do we even need to come to a conclusion, or is it enough to sort of put it in that context?
No, I think that's basically it. Like, we're talking about the most complete series again. I think from an individual player, just to do everything and against this team with as a subpar roster as possibly you can imagine. Like that, everybody stepped up tonight. Like if Wade had put up these numbers and knocked off the Boston Celtics in, was it 2010 when they lost to the Celtics, when Jermaine O'Neal couldn't hit the side of a barn, and that roster was very incomplete before the forming of the Big Three. If Dwayne had put up these kind of numbers and been able to push Miami past the Celtics, maybe you could give credit to him. But at this point in time, I think you look at what Jimmy did. Historic. It's historic. There's no way around it.
The points and the efficiency. It's 37 a game on 60% shooting. Like, only LeBron ever got close to that. When you really look at sort of the Eastern Conference Finals, but he was even like not even this. I think the conference finals with LeBron, given the stakes, not just the fact that it sent the Heat to the finals that year, but also could have been the end of the Big Three era as we knew it, right? Reporting after that being like, if they don't win that series, maybe they trade Chris Bosh, they break it up, experiment failed, all that kind of stuff. Dwayne Wade in the 2006 finals, delivering the franchise its first ever championship on that stage against a really good Dallas Mavericks team. I think those are the three. That's like the pantheon, right? Like those three. This one from Jimmy, the LeBron Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics, the look and all of that, and then LeBron in the Dwayne Wade in the 06 Finals. That's the pantheon. It's the all-time greats. You could choose whichever order you want to put it in as a Heat fan. Let's get to the cinnamon toast crunch cookies or whatever they were.
Yes.
Let's talk about Gabe Vincent, man.
Yeah.
You know what?
Started off well.
Let's put a pin in that. I got one more Jimmy Butler point. Butler point.
Let's do it.
You mentioned how they were going for the kill in this game. I think it's a really important point because they could have rolled over in game 4 and just said, you know what? Giannis came back. We're down in the middle of the fourth quarter. They came in a must-win situation. Hats off to them. Let's go. We could still win this series. We're not worried about it. They come back. They win the series. One of the greatest games we've ever seen in the playoffs ever by Jimmy in game 4. We already did that show recap. And in this game, Bucks back at home, down 3-1, just sort of the rhythm of the NBA. The Bucks win this game. They are supposed to win this game, right? They're an awesome team with an awesome player. They delivered they delivered haymakers in that first half. And yet somehow the Heat kept staying in there thanks to Gabe Vincent, some shot making from Kyle Lowry and other guys. We're going to get to that in the Cinnamon Toast Crunch Cookie credit things. But you get to the end of the game and the Heat rally back like we talked about. And to go back to going for the kill, Jimmy Butler coming off of a screen and shooting a 3 with like 20-something seconds left in the game, or 30 seconds left in the game, I think, 34. To go for instead of they were down 2, you can go for 2 and go for the tie. And Jimmy Butler just came off that screen and said, you know what? Brooke is playing back a little bit. I've got the 3. I'm not saying it was a bad look, but normally the player, especially a player like Jimmy Butler, I know that he took 10 threes tonight, which is insane, but
it was the Eastern Conference Finals shot.
I thought for sure
it was the same shot he took. Like it looked like it was from the same spot that he took it in game 7.
It was a little bit further to the right, and it was not in semi-transition. It was off of an inbounds play, but still, like, yeah, he went for the kill there. And I was like, I was watching the game on the couch with my wife, and I'm just like, he went for the throat there. He went for the throat. You could go for the tie. I expected him to just come off of a Bam screen like they ran the last 6 possessions before that was just Bam and Jimmy screening for each other, Bam facilitating from the high post and just feeding Jimmy coming off of screens at all different angles and all these things. I was like, just do that again. It was working. And maybe you draw the foul and you get 3 points that way. But he's like, no, he went for the kill there. It didn't work. The Heat ended up winning, obviously, but it was noticeable the mindset of this team, and that's how you do what it is that the Heat did.
What do you make of Jimmy talking to Drew Holiday? Because a lot of Bucks fans are up in arms of it.
I don't care.
I loved it. I know. I mean, I don't really, because I mean they're emotionally caught up and invested, and that's fine. They're going to complain about everything.
I get it. It was the Heat fans were just complaining about the officiating.
I think there was like an understanding. I can't recall exactly who it was when it was Zach Randolph, and I remember him talking about at some point, like whenever he matched up with a particular player, he knew that those battles were going to be super physical, and so they always talked to refs beforehand, and they told them, don't call a foul unless it's something really, really egregious, because otherwise we're just going to be going at each other and attacking each other all night. And so just let us play through it. And the refs, most of the time, wound up acceding to that request. I wonder if something like that took place between Drew and Jimmy, because it was physical. And there were moments there where Jimmy's like pointing at Drew and talking obvious smacks.
But it was never Nick Claxton stepping over Joel Embiid. It was never Nick Claxton standing over Joel Embiid after a dunk. It was always sort of walking away. It was within the confines of, I think, what is allowed in the playoffs. Nothing was, to me, nothing to me said this should be taunting. Yeah, it was never outward taunting. It was just normal trash talk. Look, I'm so over this. Like, oh, you hurt my feelings. Trash talk, like BS stuff, like Angel Reese with Caitlin Clark, and they're all the people up in arms over that. And just get over it, man. Like, these guys this is what happens. Like, if you don't, I'm just like.
The excitement of the moment. Let's get to the credit cookies.
Let's talk about
there's
Gabe
so many
Vincent.
Players. Let's start with Gabe. Huge moments.
That inbounds play. Were you surprised to see Gabe Vincent being the one to inbounds it on the one that Jimmy Butler tied the game and sent it to overtime?
Yeah. I don't think he made that same play when they executed something similarly against the Houston Rockets earlier in the year. I don't think he was the inbounder on that. I think it was Kyle Lowry, but
it's usually Lowry.
Yeah,
and Lowry was on the court for the Heat at that point. He had not fouled because he fouled out in overtime. I was like, okay, you see the guys kind of walking off the sideline. Spo drew up the play, and Kyle Lowry just keeps walking. I was like, where's he going? Where's he going?
Perfect pass.
And then Gabe Vincent is there. And I'm like, they're going to, and then you see Giannis step up and you're like, well, now you obviously switch it out. This is just too much. This is too much for Gabe Vincent. Like at this stage with Giannis in front of him, no way. You put it in Kyle Lowry's hands. And I said, no. And Spo trusted, and his teammates trusted Gabe Vincent. And to deliver that pass, I don't know, man. Like that was
the execution on that. Courageous, like daring, and
kind of sidearm through it, like Brett Favre almost, just sort of, just
it made no sense. Like
Giannis.
it defied physics, and somehow it landed in Jimmy's hands. And look, credit to Jimmy, he had to position himself. But as he's jostling for position with Pat Connaughton, and you could say that maybe he fouled Connaughton, but Connaughton probably fouled him as well. It was just physical as they were trying to fight. Or
I'm glad they let him play there.
Yeah, he caught the ball, and he's falling down, and somehow chucks it up. I don't think it even clanked off the backboard. It just kind of dribbled gently over the rim and fell through with 0.4 seconds left in the game. Unbelievable moment. Like that pass from Gabe. Incredible.
And then before that, 2 huge plays, right?
The 3-pointer.
No, I'm sorry. The 3-pointer and the 3-pointer that we already talked about, cold-blooded, going down. I mean, what did Gabe end up? We haven't even read his box score. I mean, he was awesome. 22 points on 9 of 23 shooting. Second most shots on the team. And he had the 6 assists. He was awesome. He was the other assist he had after Bam fouls out in overtime, that important inbounds play, all the Bucks follow Jimmy Butler to the corner. Cody Zeller goes straight down the lane, and Gabe Vincent has the patience not to just freak out and throw it to Jimmy. He has the patience to wait for Cody Zeller to make that cut and just feeds him the easiest dunk of his career in overtime and in an elimination game. He was unbelievable tonight, and I'll go back to it, man. To do it in front of Giannis against the Bucks in Milwaukee. That takes cojones, man. That takes the chutzpah that we were always talking about. He's got that dog in him. Like that stuff is hard, man. Sure. Like you can't overstate it.
Yeah, we're gonna take some heat, no pun intended, for our lack of faith.
We'll talk about that. I want to get to that later when we get to the listener questions, because there's enough people talking. All
right,
put a pin in that.
All right, let's do that. So just talk about Gabe. Fantastic performance, big shots. Some people were critical of him for taking too many shots, but the shots were falling for the most part, and he was aggressive. And it was the kind. Look, we made that
in
same
this
point
game or the series. People critical of him.
Of him tonight in particular, because he was really aggressive early on. He finished 9 of 23. Not fantastic, but it's good. It's solid. And still, again, it was a big part of Miami's offense. Is why they've looked so slow and so sluggish. Because they just don't take a lot of shots. They're always looking for the right pass or the right cut or the right open shot. But we've seen even when they get to the rim, sometimes they toss it out for a 3-pointer, and a lot of Heat fans lament that shot selection. That's why they take less shots than any team in the league. Tonight, he was aggressive. Nobody else was taking those shots.
12,
so go for it.
12. Well, somebody else was Kevin Love, and I want to talk about him too. 12 3-pointers for Gabe, 11 for Kevin Love, 10 for Jimmy Butler. The Heat took 45 threes overall. And when the free throw discrepancy is what it was, the Heat made 11 free throws in the game. The Bucks made 28. So you're talking about a 17-point discrepancy just from the free throw line.
Yep.
The way that you make up for that, and then Giannis just being unbelievable every time he was in the paint, and then oftentimes getting that foul call. The way you make up for that discrepancy is, and the rebounding discrepancy that definitely existed, is taking 45 3-point attempts. So the Heat finally kind of got to that part of their game. They had to be aggressive, and you could tell they were sort of hunting them. Like they're like, you know what? If there's a little bit of daylight, we're gonna toss it up there. The fact that Duncan only took 2 3-pointers and Max only took 4, and they still got up 45 3-point attempts is wild. I would love to see Jimmy Butler take maybe not 10, seems like a lot, but like 6 to 8 a game, like next season would be great. I don't know. But I know that's playoff Jimmy. Anyway, Gabe Vincent's awesome. Lots of credit cookies to him. Let's talk about Kevin Love. We mentioned him already. The biggest thing from Kevin Love to me, the back-to-back threes in the fourth quarter, the first one to tie the game, and the next one, the first one to take the lead and the next one to make that lead 6 points.
Yep.
Unbelievable from him. At the end of the game, basically until he fouled out, we've not seen Kevin Love close a whole lot. Not once in these playoffs. Was not the best Caleb Martin game, even though he had his moments in overtime. Yep. But Kevin Love was tremendous. I thought that he was taken advantage of a few times defensively, but for the most part, really solid.
Held his own.
Like really solid, and his rebounding was really important too. 12 rebounds.
Yeah, I'd say looking ahead, and I know that we're saving it. I think he can match up with Mitchell Robinson too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that play
Rebounding
out.
is going to be really important from him.
Yeah. So that's a big thing to consider. But tonight, like let's focus on this, like his shot making, just his overall presence. He had a block too in a pivotal moment. Stepping up, man. Like he had his best shooting night as a member of the Heat and the game that mattered the most. And you cannot discredit his experience, his championship experience, his pedigree, his just confidence in the moment. And that's something that I don't know that we expected as an X factor to the series, was his comfort in these moments. He's been to the finals. We kind of all disregard that because he was the overlooked member of that big three in Cleveland, but he's been to the finals. He knows what it takes to win these playoff
There's more
games.
finals experience than anybody on the roster other than Udonis Haslem. Anybody in the rotation,
yeah. I mean, just incredible performance from him. Really, really big game. And I think he's going to find a way to be a factor throughout the rest of the series. I mean, the playoffs. However long it lasts from Miami, I think he'll be a key rotation player moving forward, as well. He should be. I think he's earned it.
Yeah, I think that as well. I don't think there's I'm sorry.
A bunch of cookies for him as well.
Oh yeah, a bunch of cookies for him. Yeah.
Everybody gets a bunch today. You get a bunch, I get a bunch. We all get bunches.
Just bunches of cookies. Like you just get full baskets, like they give you at parties. Not parties that I go to, but like fancy parties.
What parties do you go to with baskets of cookies?
I don't know.
Have you heard about this? I don't know. Your wife has been telling you stories that aren't true, Wes. I'm sorry. Well, there are no baskets of cookies.
That has nothing to do with this podcast. But Bam Adebayo, let's talk about him. So nursing this left hamstring that's been bothering him pretty much all series, at least the last several games of the series. Yes. He's undergoing treatment around the clock. He says he's like in the facility like 3 or 4 times a day, just getting people looking at it, working on it, all this stuff. And it makes sense when you look at it's not whatever. I'm not one of the players, so I can't. It's an excuse, and it's a good one, right? For why it's a reason, in other words, why he's been shooting so poorly. And when you watch him, he doesn't have that same explosiveness around the basket. He doesn't have the same lift on those mid-range jumpers. Obviously, the hamstring's bothering him. But I think defensively, his contributions have been overlooked this entire series. I thought defensively he was incredible tonight. He was the only actual guy doing anything against Giannis without fouling him. And even though he still only shot 8 for 20 tonight, he ended up with 20 points. He had 10 rebounds. He had 10 assists. He had a triple-double. And I mentioned it earlier, David, but in that final stretch of the fourth quarter, the Heat found something that was working with Brook Lopez dropping off of him.
Do you know what Giannis' stat line was in the fourth? 1 of 9. 1 of 9 in the fourth quarter of a clutch game. You know why?
I wonder if he was bothered. You remember that he took that really tough fall and it seemed to be bothering him. I can't remember.
He was plotting his way to the rim. Like, I mean, he was doing Giannis things and just exploding. Look, I know the injury was a factor. I'm not stupid enough to discount it altogether, but that doesn't also change the fact that he was doing everything that we've seen him do over the course of his career and through the regular season, taking those 5 steps.
He only had 1 free throw attempt.
The rim.
Yeah, he only had 1 free throw attempt in the entire second half plus overtime.
Yeah.
So maybe it was the back that was because he wasn't as aggressive in the second half. Like I actually didn't look
9 field goal attempts in the
first half.
He was aggressive. Those shots weren't falling. I think that was Bam. Like it was all Bam. Like we can rewatch it tomorrow and kind of pick nits there. But to be honest with you, I really just think that Bam did a fantastic job locking him up, meeting him at the point of contact, denying him the entry pass, forcing him out of the paint a little bit, doing fantastic Bam Adebayo defensive things. And the offensive was a struggle. I think a big part of that was the injury. Yeah.
His was like the flip side of Giannis, right? Like he couldn't get it going in the first half, and then he had 13 points in the second half.
But we've seen that from him throughout the series. Like that's the second half for him. Third, fourth quarters. He usually has a couple buckets here and there against Brook. He kind of figures out the timing, gets a little bit more comfortable. It's like, okay, yeah, I can get this shot. And he had a big dunk in the overtime as well. So keep him.
He had a huge dunk in overtime, that tip dunk too. And he had this. He finally got one of those mid-range shots to fall during that final stretch in the fourth quarter. And I actually said it out loud. I didn't tweet it, but I said it out loud. I was like, he's going to have to make one of these mid-range shots because Brook Lopez was playing so far off of him because he wasn't taking it. He after that rough first half, he's like, I'm just not going to take it. And so he was doing a lot of the facilitating work from there. And Jimmy Butler, again, those 12 straight points, equal credit going to Bam for those because like Jimmy just kept coming off of a Kevin Love screen, right? and then or somebody else, but a lot of times it was Kevin Love. And then on a different angle, either we'd go to the 3-point line or we would go under and cut to the basket baseline, or we kind of come across on that Iverson cut, kind of right to the free throw line. And Bam was just like, all right, you're going here, boop, you're going there, bop, you're going there, I got you. And he just kept finding Jimmy and just feeding Jimmy, and Jimmy kept getting on the move, getting easy buckets.
Pass, yeah.
It was great passes. And then eventually the Bucks kind of tightened up on it. And when he was doing that is when I said, Bam's gonna have to make one of these mid-range shots at some point for the Heat to win this game. And like a minute later, Bam just pulled, like the Bucks tighten up on it, and then Bam it goes for that mid-range jumper, and it kind of goes around the basket and finally kind of goes in. He gets the shooter's roll on it. He was awesome. Defensively, he was great. It was a shame that he fouled out. The foul call on him, I think it was a foul. Oh, you thought it was ridiculous? He kind of moved into Middleton.
Yeah, but again, there was so much.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the Kevin Love one. I'm sorry, the Kevin Love one.
Yeah,
that he fouled.
Yeah, there was so much physicality, and then it just felt like it was incidental contact of the lowest kind, and there was so much physicality on every possession from both sides of the ball.
Right.
Whether you're denying the entry pass or whatever, or you're trying to keep them from getting the position, like. Both teams were extremely physical because that's just how Miami plays in general, and we'll see that in the next series against the Knicks as well. So
that's gonna be a physical series too.
Yeah, low scoring. It's gonna be back to the 90s, baby.
Getting back to Bam fouling out, Spo going with Haywood Highsmith at the end there. Great move. Highsmith locking up Drew Holiday under the basket at the end there, and then the big was it Drew Holiday? Yeah, it was. No, I can't remember who it was, but the big stop at the end there for Haywood Highsmith, which ended up sealing the win and the series. So. Credit cookies galore, man. Like everybody gets them. Kyle Lowry gets them. Max Strus with the block that he had at the end there, where he's smiling. It was unbelievable. Everybody's getting cookies. They're going to Caleb Martin coming in after a bad game, comes in overtime after Lowry fouls out, and then I actually think it was kind of I thought Lowry was starting to lose a little bit gas, and Caleb Martin did not play for most of that fourth quarter. In my notes, I have it written like good thing that Lowry fouled out. Because Caleb comes in, plays great defense on Drew Holiday to force a miss under the basket, and then got a huge rebound a little bit later. Caleb Martin gave you some good minutes in overtime. So it all worked out. And then Spo just pulling all the right strings, hitting the right buttons, pulling the right levers. Awesome coaching job by him in the mid-game where things were kind of crazy. And then having that challenge at the end, there was a few calls that he could have challenged earlier. He had that huge challenge at the end that they ruled Lowry with that foul.
Bad decision by Budenholzer, right? To elect to challenge
that was
the call.
Crazy, dude. Like the first 4 minutes
Giannis wasn't even in foul trouble. Yeah, Giannis wasn't even. He picked up 4 fouls all game. He's not going to get those calls against him.
And even if you get it overturned, who cares? It's the first 4 minutes of the game. Like, congrats. Like,
he's just trying to avoid picking up 5 over the next few. It's like, very bizarre.
We'll get to your questions next, and I guess we can try to eat some crow, David. You and I are being accused of being doubters, haters, not believing, letting go of the rope. We'll address that in the next segment, but first tell listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta Groceries. School shopping and getting a little something for yourself. Well, you're already doing it, so why not get cash back for it with Ibotta? You can make all your standard purchases and then just use Ibotta, get a little cash back. You can earn cash back on every shopping trip because you get cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to party goods. You either link your loyalty account or you upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It's that easy. I had no idea, but my wife has been doing it for months. Before we even started these ads reads, she's been getting cash back. She loves it. She swears by it. Now she tracks down every receipt like it's their job. And it's fulfilling because you get money back. If you're going to be spending money anyway, and we all do at some point or another, why not get cash back for those purchases? So go to Ibotta right now. They're offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play and download the free Ibotta app and use the code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use the code LOCKED.
All right. Well, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. YouTube, podcast, everybody tuning in live. Make sure you're subscribed everywhere, subscribe, all those things. And thank you if you already do. We came into this series, and David, I'll give you credit. You've always been much higher on this Heat team than I have. You've been sort of just waiting for them to turn this around. And I basically wrote this team off after they lost to the Hawks in the play-in tournament. And if we're both being honest, probably a little bit earlier than that. Yeah. So, and then I will say congratulations to Eric Spoelstra for his 100th playoff win. We just got a remark about that. Good job keeping track of the records there. I don't think that's I stand by it. I don't think I'm sorry for writing off this team. They played like they were a sorry, frustrating
after
team.
their game too.
During the regular season
loss.
And they lost.
It was easy to pile up. Yeah.
Well, and then they lost to the Hawks in the play-in tournament. And then after the game too, like they gave me no reason in the regular season to believe in them. So if you believed in them, great. And I mean you in the general you. I'm not talking to you, David, necessarily right here, but like if you as a fan wanted to fan out and just believe in this team, awesome. Like keep that rope in your hands. Keep believing. I give you all the credit. I'm a fan of the Miami Heat. I'm also a media member, and I've had a hard time sort of towing both lines over the last few years. And I think where I come down on it is I generally, and look, I was like this growing up. I'm always a pessimistic fan. Blame the Miami Dolphins. I'm a pessimistic fan of the teams that I root for. Okay. That's where I am. Yeah. I got no guts. CB0. Good job. West, no guts. I have no guts. I have no guts as a fan. I have zero guts as a fan. But you know what? That's how I was raised, is to have no guts. Okay. So it's been working for me. I'm going to stand by it. It makes the highs that much higher. It's fine. It's great. It's a good win. But I also want to cover the team objectively, and that's part of it, right? If you want to just get hyped up and just gas up your team, go on Twitter, man. Go on Facebook. Go on Reddit. Like there's plenty of other podcasts that do that kind of thing.
Can I push back on that a little bit? Because how many people were telling us throughout the whole season when I was being optimistic at times, telling me, David, you're smoking crack. This team's a first round out. They're a play-in team. They suck. This was in February and January and December. These were our fans, plenty of people on both sides saying this team was terrible. And my thought process was, you know what? I've seen which playoff Jimmy can do. I know that the rest of the team has struggled with their shooting for the most of the season, and yet all the pieces are still there. Like they were so good last year. That's what made this team so hard to even analyze throughout most of the regular season. Like you and I have been really challenged by this team, as have every other.
I always said I have no idea if this team is good because they were missing so many open shots. It was like they execute things well and get shots that you'd want to get to, and then they miss them. And I was like, is this team just not talented enough? And look, I have no idea what's going to happen against the Knicks. I have no idea. I'm not ready to make any kind of prediction. I got to go look at it. But look, I think people are here. You're not alone, Wes. Look, I like it. Okay. Whatever. That's enough. I hate, I hate doing this because most of the people that comment that kind of thing, it's a vocal minority. I think people do appreciate the show for the reasonable takes that we try to provide. And we're not just gassing up teams and saying that you're going to win everything. Everybody else sucks. That's not a podcast. And that's not frankly interesting at all to talk about. No, but I also don't think people like to listen to this. Us just kind of say, oh, we're right. We're wrong. Whatever. Nobody cares.
No, I think they do. I think a lot of people want to point out the fact that maybe we had doubts. And look, if anything, that is the concurrent theme, I think, throughout this whole conversation after tonight's win, is that's what makes tonight's win, this series, Jimmy's playoff performance, that much more special, is that people should have doubted him. Like there was no reason to expect that this series would turn out the way it did. ESPN, every single analyst, people that love this game, have played this game, cover this game fanatically, religiously, all predicted Milwaukee would win for good reason. They were the number one seed. That's what makes this team so special. This performance, this series, is that they defied the odds. They've done something that very few teams have done. 6 teams in NBA history have done this. An 8th seed and a play-in tournament 8th seed to go in there taking on a 68-win team. I mean, that's incredible.
Did they tank the play-in game against the Hawks so that they could be the 8th seed and make history?
No, I think they just had a bad game. I think that was just
they got crushed on the boards, and the Hawks played great. Do you like this nickname for Jimmy Butler, Jim Wick?
I am not a fan of the movie franchise. I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. So you don't dislike it. You just haven't gotten around to watching.
I haven't. Yeah. I haven't.
What
I
about
think
James
John
Bond?
Wick series came.
What
Like,
about, what about
when did
James
the
Bond?
first John Wick movie came out? I don't even know.
I have no idea.
Pre-COVID?
But they're great. Yeah,
Okay,
definitely,
I'll watch
way pre-COVID. It's probably I
Okay.
don't know. I'm gonna guess like 7 years ago, but I could be totally
Okay.
wrong. I have no
All
idea.
right.
I have really bad
You're making up
kind of
stuff right
recall
now.
on that stuff. Yes, I am. Yes, this is wine in my glass. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Why not? Let's do it. This is a special moment. This is what makes covering basketball so much fun. Like, I know it's been really easy and kind of just something that for a lot of fans on social media, and you get former basketball players talking about narratives like narratives are some kind of dark evil entity that lurks under your bed at night and just comes in and puts bad takes into your brain while you're sleeping and fills your dreams with nightmarish visions of X player. But the stories of basketball are what drive all of us. We love statistics. We love breaking down plays. We love breaking down rotations and off-season transactions and everything else like that. But everyone here, like, there are 400 people watching this show right now, or close to 400 people watching this show right now at 1:50 in the morning, because you all love fucking basketball. And this is what makes this game special, is seeing performances like this. Jimmy Butler, the Miami Heat, telling Milwaukee, you know what? Screw your first seed, screw all that, screw your MVPs and your Defensive Player of the Year awards and your All NBA teams. We have 18 goddamn undrafted players in our roster, and we're still going to come cram it down your throat. That's the goddamn Miami Heat, baby. That's the excitement. You got to feel it. You got to feel it, at least for one night. Tomorrow I'll be chill, but right now I'm excited.
I was standing up in my living room for the last 30 minutes of whatever. It just felt like forever with all the free throws. Incredible Heat win. We could start to put a bow on it if we want. They like to. All right, you know what? That's probably a good place to end it if we want. We did have this. No, you know what? I don't know. I feel like that would be a jinx.
This is a good question for tomorrow's game. Who will be the X factor against the Knicks there?
Yeah, you know what? Let's tie a bow on this one. Awesome Heat win. This is one of those wins where I mentioned before, I've had a hard time sort of like balancing like the media thing and the fan thing. And one of the reasons I wanted to come back and cover the Miami Heat was because I wanted to, and I never wanted to lose that fan part. I never wanted to lose it as sort of an objective media member. This was one of those games where I was fully in. I stopped taking notes for the last 6 minutes because either the Heat were going to lose, and I know why, and I already knew why they were going to lose. If they lost this game, it was clear why. They didn't make enough shots. The free throw disparity was too large. The rebound disparity was too large. Those last few minutes, I already knew it. So I stopped taking notes. And if they were going to win the game, it actually didn't even matter how they won or why they won. All that mattered was that they won, right? And so I just stopped taking notes. I was standing up, pacing in my living room, going crazy, clapping, slamming the table. Like, that was fun, man. Like, that was a fun game to watch. And to your point, that's why we do this. That's why you and I are in sports. It's why we felt passionately enough to do this podcast in the first place. And it's why we're here. And man, that locker room's got to be so hyped right now.
Goddamn right. Goddamn right. And well earned. Like, with all the doubters, with all the challenges of the season, with all the struggles and people talking about blowing it up and tanking and, throwing away the trade-ins, the play-ins so you can get the 14th pick in the draft, et cetera, et cetera.
You and I never bought into that. That's stupid. Yeah. I never believe in that. You never tank a chance.
Losing breeds losing.
Absolutely. For a 14th or for the 14th pick in the draft. Who cares? If you're gonna tank, like, do it from the beginning of the year. Just tank,
right?
Just do it. Commit.
Right.
Don't change your mind in the last week of the season.
I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
Heat Knicks. It's happening, David. Sunday, 1:00. We are going to have a preview of that for you on Friday morning. We're going to spend all day, I guess today. It's 2:00 in the morning on Thursday. All day today, kind of looking at that series, what the Heat need to do to win that series and keep this incredible run alive. We're going to have that for you on Friday. We'll have a recap of game one for you Sunday, immediately after that game that's going to be happening at Madison Square Garden. Heat Knicks, David, man. This is great. We haven't had this since the 90s.
Hey, Heat fans better buy those goddamn tickets when they're at the Kaseya Center. I don't care about what excuses about traffic or anything like that. If you're watching or listening to this podcast right now, you buy those tickets. I don't want to go to another goddamn Knicks game where 50% of the crowd is wearing Knicks blue. I don't want to hear another red-faced asshole Knicks fan with too many rum and cokes in his system cheering for Julius Randle's and his crap-ass shots. You buy those tickets. I don't care. I'll pay for them. Whatever it takes. Get there to the Kaseya Center. Support your Miami Heat, baby. Let's do it.
Thanks for listening.